Oh, so you do pick up after yourself and I am just exaggerating? Let's give every man for himself a try then. Years ago, when I just moved in with my then BF, now fiancé, he was terrible at picking up after himself. He was a self-admitted mama's boy and went directly from his parents' house to our shared home. Barely 3 weeks in I was fed up, so when I told him that I was tired of picking up after him and acting as his maid, he hit me with, "That's not true, we both clean up equally." After a bit of back and forth he said, "Well, if you don't believe me then let's split the house, you take care of your half and I take care of mine." I took that literally. Got painter's tape, divided every single room in half, including the kitchen counter, the inside of the fridge, the bathroom counter. Also, he was cocky and suggested 2 months, I shortened it to 1. Not even a week and his half looked like a pigsty and he had no more food, because I stopped grocery shopping and cooking for him. The only exception I made was cleaning the toilet and shower because I was not about to use a filthy bathroom to make a point. He bought me flowers and chocolate, apologized for his behavior and started learning how to be an adult. We are 8 years into this relationship and he is an amazing man. We are about to get married.
Now to the comments. After 3 years of living with a very messy and dirty man, stopped cleaning up after him. A month later he informed me we should end things. I took pictures of our home to ensure I'd never go back to him.
I did the same thing, taking photos with my filthy unhygienic ex. I also sent them to him in response to him trying to manipulate me into taking him back. Turns out I didn't even need the photos to convince myself, as every day coming back to a clean house fills me with a certainty that I made the right decision.
Same. Bought my own place and I come home with much less tension. Something about a clean toilet and no dirty dishes growing maggots in the sink just works for me. I love when people take accountability. Now look, a wonderful relationship and marriage will soon foster, only if everyone could swallow their pride. I'm glad the guy didn't double down and took his L like a man.
Took his L? Edit. Thanks for the answers. I wanted to confirm I understood that right, since it's the first time I ever saw it said that way and you all reassured me. Cool.
Took his loss as in he accepted defeat. Glad this worked out for you prior to getting married. I basically tried this, though not quite as literally, and he didn't give a shit about the mess, my feelings, or fairness, with housekeeping or anything else, and so we got divorced 8 years into our relationship, 2 years after getting married. Edit, adding that he also had only ever lived at home except a short stretch in a dorm.
8 years? Could have been like OP and shortened it to 1.
They've also been in a relationship 8 years, so that's why I mentioned it. But yeah, I wish I had. I had the unfortunately common attitude that I didn't deserve or couldn't do any better, unease. I had some friends at university that all lived in the same shared house that were each insistent that the general mess wasn't their fault, but the others. They all eventually graduated and moved out, some to other house shares, others to living on their own. Within 2 months every single one of them was living with the same amount of mess. It was a shade thrower's paradise.
My experiences of living with others are that 2 people is the ideal number. If there's 2 people, the mess is either mine or theirs. If there's 3 people, you don't know who the mess belongs to. Very frequently, I'd find a stack of plates in the kitchen that was a mix of both of my roommates' stuff, and none of us was willing to take on the mess of another person. The more people, the less any of them are willing to be responsible for anyone else's mess, and the more the messes intermingle, the harder it is for it to get dealt with before it becomes a health hazard. I also firmly believe that people who live together need to have the same level of investment in keeping the place clean. Not necessarily that they all need to be neat freaks about it, but that there can't be one person who desperately needs it to be clean and a bunch of people who'll get to it in due time. That's just a recipe for drama and stress. The best times I've had, we all were equally lazy and there was no drama. We all knew we sucked at it, and once a week we'd all pull together and get the kitchen clean. That worked fine. It was when my buddy got a germophobic girlfriend who moved in with us that the drama started. She couldn't live with a bit of mess for a few days. It had to be dealt with immediately every time. We're talking passive aggressiveness, angry notes on the fridge, stuff like that. Lovely girl, but I'm glad they moved in together and go their own place.
Yeah, except even two cannot really work. I lived with a friend for a while, and she was very messy and turned our kitchen into a disaster every night while I was at work. Second shift, she was always like, "But I made enough food so you could eat too." But she had made food at like 6 p.m. and I didn't get home until like 11 p.m., at which point the food had been sitting out for 5 hours. I'm not eating that. I ate out a lot during this time. We each bought separate groceries, and I just ended up keeping my dishes in my bedroom in a small stack until I wanted to clean them, then would clean them separately from everything else. Still good friends. I kinda reality checked her at one point when it got bad, and after we moved to different cities, she apologized basically saying she messy one. Living on her own I guess made her realize no one else had been contributing to the mess she had been making the entire time. LOL. Like, yeah, I know. As an ex-mama's boy, thank you so much for doing this for him. I didn't figure this out until I was forced to live on my own for the first time, and honestly, within 2 weeks I was not only cured but loving it. You gave him the opportunity to learn and he took it with both hands it seems. I had a similar experience when I was just married. My wife was complaining about how messy the house always was. I knew I was cleaning, and was equally perplexed. Then I started paying attention and realized that I was cleaning up her clothes and her messes. Luckily, I was able to point it out, nicely, to her and she realized that we were both a part of the problem and can both be the solution.
My wife has now admitted years after the fact that she got a knot in the pit of her stomach the first time she came to my apartment and saw how clean it was. Then she got really stressed when she had to admit that it was normally like that. I hadn't especially cleaned up for her. Her place was filthy. She did have roommates though. Her parents are evangelicals and her dad and brothers didn't do shit because mom and the sisters did all the cleaning and cooking. She didn't know how to deal with a man that didn't need a woman to feed him, do his laundry and clean house. It made her insecure.
That's kind of sad. Her whole self-worth was tied to being a maid. As long as you both agree to it, a true test of who does what is always very telling. I love this one. Reminds me of the road trip my husband and I just got back from. He sat in the back of his truck for the first time while I drove, to ride with our niece, and he got really nauseated. Being in the middle of a national forest, I said I could just pull over so he could drive. He said, "Well no, just wait for one of those dumpster spots." I explained I had no idea what he was talking about and long story short, he decided that to prove how confident he was in their existence, we wouldn't switch until we found one. We switched when I reached the other side of the forest. We've been married 9 years and victory is still so sweet.
So, what did he mean?
Cackling. I had a similar issue but way less extreme and suggested we keep a household labor timesheet. Either I was misjudging the disparity from the start, unlikely but not impossible, or he shifted into high gear as soon as he saw my 10+ hours/week in a spreadsheet.
As a dude, if I agreed to that and I saw you kicked my ass, I'd be like, no you ain't. I'm not about to prove myself a liar, and work extra hard. So, probably that second one. Sometimes people have blind spots on where they're pulling their weight or not.
That's the beauty. We win either way. This was one of the red flags that my ex was a narcissist. We had spoken often about doing housework as equal partners well before we were married. I intended to keep my full-time job. In fact, I earned more than he, so chores were agreed upon to be split. 7 months into the marriage and he decides he doesn't want to do his share anymore and gets violently angry that I expect him to take out the trash on his designated day. Following that, he argues that since he doesn't want to clean, I can't make him, and if I want it clean, you'll have to do it yourself. Challenge accepted. Malicious compliance activated. After announcing, "Okay, I will," subsequently, I cleared the living room of his refuse, his jacket, his backpack, and his shoes. Slam, I threw them into his den and onto his PC chair. His dirty dishes and his dirty laundry. Bam, onto his PC chair. He couldn't access his computer without picking up his shit on his chair. Naturally, he protested, and I replied, "You wanted me to clean, so this is how I'm going to do it." It only took one more day of that type of house cleaning and he started doing his chores. However, the marriage limped along a few years and he got his heart's desire when I was called up to military deployment and he had the house to himself, to clean or not to clean, as he saw fit. Therefore, he did none of it. I wasn't even there and the mess was all his, but he neglected all of it. Then the ex had the audacity to announce that, "I've gotten used to you being gone, and I like it." So, I came home to piles of trash, overflowing litter boxes and dead house plants. His solution to the squalor was that I should do it all, the cooking, cleaning and working a full-time job, because I was a terrible person and his sitting on the computer all day, was more important. Long story short, which included DV, we divorced. The ex said it was because of what she did to me.
Sounds like you finally took out all the trash.
And lost 150 pounds in the process.